now on to join us is Rene Backmann, the author of A Wall in Palestine, to talk about this issue a little bit more. Rene, welcome to the Young Turks.
Okay.
So tell us what the thrust of A Wall in Palestine is, if you could. What's the essence of the book?
Well, I decided to write the book and to make this investigation for two reasons. First, I was wondering why the Israeli were going to build the wall so many years after the Berlin Wall fell down. This was the first question. The other question was why this wall was supposed to go so deep inside the Palestinian territory. And it is the main point of my book. The main point of my investigation is to try to find why there are so many loops in the wall that goes inside the Palestinian territory.
Rene, isn't that fairly obvious that, of course, they're building the wall and outside of the 1967 lines to simply grab more territory? Isn't that the most obvious thing in the whole wide world?
Well, we can say several things. We can say first that the wall, it's a fact. It prevents some attacks. That's true. It was, in principle, built with this aim. But the real aim of building the wall was to create something that would look like the new border of the future state of Palestine. For the Israeli, they are right now preparing to have a kind of negotiation in which the border will be already on the ground. And this new border will not be the green line which was supposed by everybody, by the international community, to be the border of the Palestinian territory. The Israelis, they don't accept this border. They decided to choose another border which goes around the Israeli settlements which are inside the Palestinian territory. It's why the wall makes so many loops inside the Palestinian territory. In fact, by going so much inside the Palestinian territory with so deep loops, it annexes to the Israeli territory a big part, something like between 5 and 9% of the West Bank. That means that the territory that should be the Palestinian state.
So Israel's going to say, look, that territory is now basically ours, and East Jerusalem is obviously ours because Jerusalem's an undivided city and our capital. So what kind of negotiations are we going to have when, I mean, under what circumstances would the Palestinians agree?
And what can you negotiate, you mean?
Yeah, how do you negotiate when somebody says, no, it's mine, even though the entire rest of the world says, no, it's not? What do you do when they have the tanks and the planes and are backed by the United States government, apparently 110%?
That is the problem that Obama has when he is in front of Netanyahu. What happened 2 days ago was exactly that. They were together face to face, and apparently even Barack Obama was not able to get from Netanyahu the promise that he will stop building in the settlements. Why? Because building in the settlements means, first, for Netanyahu, that he will go on with the support of his majority, which is made of settlers and right-wing people, which are in favor of the settlements. That's the first aim. Secondly, and mainly, it's for him, be sure that this part of the Palestinian territory will never go back to the Palestinians. If there are so many Israelis living inside Palestinian territory in the colonies, what we call the colonies, and what they call the settlements, it will be very, very difficult to say at any moment in the negotiation, well, now we have to stop. All the settlements will be demolished. We will give this land to the Palestinians. This is not possible. You know, even the Palestinians themselves, they have said at the beginning of the negotiations, well before Annapolis and when they negotiated in Taba or in Camp David, they said, okay, we are okay with a kind of divide of the territory. We will make some swaps. You will, for instance, you will keep the big settlements, the land around the big settlements, and against that, in exchange, you will give us some ground, some territories which are in the south, and make us able to build a road between the south of the West Bank and Gaza. And even this kind of swap, now it's not acceptable for the Israeli. They just want the Palestinians to be in some small, a lot of people call that Bantustan, like it was in South Africa. Some small Bantustan, and those Bantustan will never be a Palestinian state.
Rene,
that is the point.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what the real point is, because if they're doing all this and they're, basically holding up the peace process. Now, I know, of course, both sides are, right? I understand that, but it seems like the Palestinians are ready to make a deal. I mean, now, people might argue against that, and you got to still work out the right of return and all that stuff. But we know what the Palestinian position is. It's the one that was supported by all the Arab states. They're pretty much ready to go, right? Now, Israel's holding up peace for themselves. What? So they can grab 5 to 10% more land in the West Bank? And of course, Jerusalem's a huge issue. But 5 to 10% land in the West Bank doesn't seem like it's worth holding up peace for. So what's their real point?
Well, the real point is, it is a political point. It is not a strategical one. It is not about 5, 6, or 7% of the Palestinian territory. It is the fact that, you see, when you look at the Israeli politics, you can see something which is very disturbing. When you make opinion polls in the Israeli population, and you ask the people, do you want to stop the settlements? Do you want the Palestinians to have a Palestinian state? Something like 65 or 70% of the Israeli answer, yes, we are for the Palestinian state. Yes, we are for stopping building in the settlements. Okay, that's a good point. But when the same people, the same Israeli people, go to the polls for real elections, when they have to elect their member of the Knesset, they elect people who think and who do exactly the contrary. That is the difficult point. And that is the situation now with Netanyahu. He was elected by people who live in the settlements, who are in favor of the settlements, mainly because they think that they have to be there to make to give a life of their Zionist dream, sometimes for other reasons, but mainly for this reason. And he was elected by these people. He is supported by these people. He is not able to go backwards. There is something that misses Netanyahu. It was what Rabin had. Rabin used to say, when he was speaking with the settlers, he used to say, okay, you say to me that you will not allow me to give back this land to the Palestinians. You are not allowed to say that to me, because this land, I give it to you. I give it to Israel, my Rabin. But Rabin, because he was able to do that, was killed. And the problem with Netanyahu, it is the same problem with Barak. They are not brave enough to have the Israeli population accept that they have to pay the price for the peace.
You know, one of the things that it makes you think, and I don't know if this is the case at all, I'm not making this argument, but it makes you think, well, look, if they're doing this over 5 to 10% of the land, either that land is very valuable for strategic reasons, water reasons, or something along those lines, or they're just doing it so that you won't get a settlement, you won't get peace, to have a broader goal of having this keep going for whatever reason. But it's hard to discern that. So, final question for you then is, you know where the wall is, and you know where it would be if it was at the 1967 border, right? Now, we know that it cuts through a lot of Palestinian towns at this point, Palestinian land, and they have the checkpoints. It's got a host of issues. But if it was on the 1967 border, would a wall make sense? Because it would keep the two sides separate. A wall, in my opinion, has worked in Cyprus, and they have not had any fighting in decades there.
Yeah.
If it was on the 1967 border, would it work?
Well, there are several opinions about that. If the wall would have been built along the Green Line, this was what you were suggesting. If the wall would have been along the Green Line, but inside the Israeli territory, instead of being inside the Palestinian territory, the Palestinians would have said, "Well, this is not a good way of being neighbors to build walls or to build a fence and so on." But the Israeli, they are allowed to do what they want to do inside their territory. The problem was that first they were thinking that a wall could solve the problem, which is not true. The wall is not solving the problem. Secondly, they were thinking that they were allowed to take so many ground. The problem is, at the beginning, this one. If they really wanted to have a wall protecting themselves against terrorism, the military told me that it would have been much more easy to defend, much more easy to protect, if the wall had been very, very short. I mean, would have been 325 kilometers long, which is the length of the Green Line. Now it's 700 kilometers long, twice the length of the Green Line. So it's strategically stupid. It's politically stupid. Yes, it gives to Israel a lot of land with water inside. Okay, it gives then the settlements. That's the only thing it gives, but it doesn't give peace, not at all. And the project they have at the beginning, when they say that we will build the wall, after that we will speak and we will go on the negotiation trip. It's not true. The wall is not something that makes easier to negotiate. It's something that makes negotiating almost impossible.
All right, Rene Backmann, author of A Wall in Palestine. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Watch the live show at theyoungturks.com.